Table Rock Fishing Intel Pro members, first off, thanks for being a pro member of Table Rock Fishing Intel. We do appreciate it, appreciate your support, and it helps us to produce all the content that you guys get to look at every day on Table Rock Fishing Intel. All the reports, all of the videos, all the tournament results, all that stuff. You guys being members make that possible. We really do appreciate that. This is the extended version of the weekly video. Today is Tuesday, March the 28th. Been out on the water pretty much every day. A couple days over in Taneycomo, which don't count. But been on the water pretty much every day since the last video, and with the exception of, I guess it was Friday when we had the storms. I didn't venture out during those days. A lot of changes going on with the lake. Obviously, the lake is up from all that heavy rain. But as far as our lake level is concerned, we are at 15.36, I believe, which puts us about 5.5 feet above normal pool. We did hit about 921 before the Corps got it turned around. And by getting it turned around, I mean they have all 10 gates open a foot, and they're running 3 generators. So they're dropping 21,000 cubic feet of water per second. Needless to say, a ton of current going through the dam and a ton of current going through the lake. What that is doing is drawing that dirtier water that was in the rivers down into the main lake, down into the mid lake. As of right now, the dirtiest water, let's see, the water's clear by the dam. If you go towards Long Creek, you will hit stained water around State Park / Clevenger. You will hit muddy water around Big Cedar. The water will stay muddy till you get above Cricket Creek. And you get above Cricket Creek, it's stained and then clears up around Yoakum. If you go up the James River, it is muddy at the mouth of the James, all the way up to about just a little bit below Cape Fair. Starts to clear around Cape Fair, and then is normal color above Bridgeport. This is all subject to change with the amount of water they're pushing through the lake, guys. So by tomorrow, it could be completely different. From the dam up to Kimberling City, it is clear up to around 0.5, gets a little bit of stain around 0.5, and that holds that stain pretty much through Kimberling and all the way to Baxter. There are some areas that are a little bit dirtier where some of the bigger creeks have flowed in, but it's still pretty clear, just a little bit of a stain. On the White River, from about Campbell Point up to the Eagle Rock Bridge is dirty. Dirtier in some spots than others, but it is certainly dirty. All the way up there, you get above Eagle Rock, it's got a slight stain, and you make that first bend, and it goes to clear, normal clear White River. The Kings River is dirty from the mouth of it up to about Sweetwater, the last I saw. And then it does clear above Sweetwater. It's stained above Sweetwater. You get above the 86 bridge, and it is relatively clear, pretty much the way it normally is. Might have a little bit more of a stain to it. Bigger thing though is with the amount of water they're pulling, keep your eyes open when you're running. There is debris everywhere. We saw about a 50-foot tree floating basically in front of the auxiliary spillway there by Chateau this morning. So keep that in mind. Keep your eyes open, watch where you're going, watch out for debris. Water temperature is all over the map, fellas. Down by the dam, when I started this morning, I saw 51. By the time I finished, it was about 53. Over the weekend, I was up the White River. Saturday, it started about 53 and made it up to about 57. Sunday, launched at Big M. It was 55 when we launched. We ran to the Arkansas state line on the White, and by the time we finished in the afternoon, it was 59, almost 60 degrees, and that water was relatively clear. The dirtier water is definitely warming up faster and holding its warmth a lot longer, so keep that in mind. So it's kind of all over the map. I'd say on average, it's probably about 55 degrees out there, but warmer water, more active fish, better chance to catch them on moving baits if that's what you like to do. Again, thanks for being Table Rock Fishing Intel members. Do appreciate that. Appreciate all your support and helping us do what we do. I've been telling you guys for a while, we've got some new stuff coming. It's getting closer and closer every week. Hopefully, by May maybe, we will be able to introduce some new things on the website. And hopefully you guys like them, because we've been working on this stuff for a little while. As far as the fishing is concerned, if you guys are going to come down and fish the lower end of the lake, I can tell you I fished the lower end today, and we stayed in the clear water, which was probably a mistake. Fished around Indian Point, from about from around point 1 to about point 5 is where we stayed at. I can tell you first thing this morning, on a rocky point with some timber on it, I caught a 7-pound largemouth on a little Kitech 2.8. That is by far my #1 bait right now all over the lake, unless the water is really, really dirty. So if it is clear or just stained, I'm throwing a brighter color like a white. I think the Kitech calls it sight flash, or even like sight flash green, sight flash blue, sight flash purple, whatever. The white, or even the white pearl with a little bit of chartreuse on the tail. I'm throwing that everywhere. A 2.8 on a 1/4 ounce head, and I'm keying on wood. I'm throwing it around standing timber. I'm throwing it around brush piles, and I'm throwing it around docks a little bit too, but mostly on the cables off at the ends of the docks. Most of the fish I'm catching are 10 to 20 foot deep. That better fish was about 10 foot deep over 25. So I'm not really paying much attention to the overall depth of the water. I'm looking for where the fish are on my forward-facing sonar and seeing how high they are in the water column. But most of them are in that 10 to about 20 foot range, and that seems to be where the better ones are. Another bite if you're fishing in the dirtier water or even in the clear water, we've been catching them on a jig, like the Pro Spider jig. Okeechobee Blue and Bass Whacker have been two really good colors, matched up with either the VersaCraw or Zoom Speed Craw. Been catching them on the Squirrel Head, the little 1/4 ounce Jewel Shaky Head, or the Magnum Shaky Head. Either one if you want something that's a little bit heavier, but most of these fish have been coming in that 10 to 15 foot range. Some of them coming up as shallow as the old bank line, so around 5 foot range. Fishing it around cover, fishing it on the bottom. I will tell you in the dam area, there is some moss starting to show up. Anywhere you've got clear water and the clear water is stuck around through this, you're going to start to see some moss. It's warmed up enough that we're really starting to see some moss spur on the bottom, so it does make it hard to throw that. And then another bite that was working up where the dirty water changes back over, up there around Cricket Creek. The other bite that was working good up there was crankbait, either a rock crawler or a wigglewort on those transition banks where it goes from the bigger rock to the smaller rock all the way down to gravel, basically the ends of the channel swings. Hit those with a rock crawler or wigglewort if you got a little bit of wind. Now I will tell you I did up the White River throw a chatterbait and a spinnerbait quite a bit over the weekend. Not great results, had a few bites, never connected with any of them, so I think water needs to warm up a little bit more, get in the 60s, and that bite will really take off. Go in the mid-lake area, and that single swim bait bite is still probably your most productive lure. Still catching them around wood, whether it be trees or rock piles. I know guys are catching them on A-rig as well. To be honest with you, I've had my fill of the A-rig for this year, so I'm trying to get away from it. If I had to fish a tournament tomorrow, I'd probably have it on the deck and probably throw it some, but my shoulders are about wore out from throwing it for the last month, so I'm trying to get away from that and going to single swim bait, and I seem to be doing a little bit better with the single swim bait. That may all be in my head, but I'm catching them better on a single swim bait right now than I am an A-rig. Same sort of depths, that 10 to 15, 10 to 20 foot range around that cover. Got to be trees, got to be brush piles, and actually in Kimberly I'm catching a few more off of docks, especially dock cables and the ends of docks, or if there's hanging brush on docks, I'm catching them. If I see some hanging brush in a slip, I'll pitch that little swim bait in there, and I've been able to catch a few doing that as well, so keep that in mind. Jig bite has been pretty good in the Kimberly City area as well, mostly with this Pro Spider jig. Again, Okeechobee Blue and Bass Whacker with either a VersaCraw or a Speed Craw on it. Most of those fish are coming in that 10 to 15 foot range. Some of them, again, up there shallow at the old bank line around 5 foot deep, so keep that in mind. Didn't really throw a crankbait or a spinnerbait when I was in the mid-lake this week, so I would imagine a crankbait would work if you had the wind and you hit the right banks. You can probably pick up a few on a crankbait by basically cranking that old bank line. Get lined up with the bushes and everything on those rockier banks, parallel that bank, and you should be able to catch some on the old bank line with a crankbait as well. Go up the James, and I haven't made up the James, but talked to a couple of guys who have. I know the water was very dirty and full of debris. Like I said, from Cape Fair on down, probably a little bit further down. It's probably clearing up around Piney now, and then on down. I know the bite was tough in the dirty water, and that's kind of been the deal over the last week. is that the really dirty, muddy water, the bites definitely have been tougher, and it usually takes those fish a few days to get adjusted to that, to get acclimated to having that dirty water before they really start feeding good in that dirty water. I know the guys I talked to, they've been doing well in the dirty water. The fish they're catching are coming on either a jig or a shaky head or a crankbait. And most of them are throwing either a spider jig or like the squirrel head or the magnum shaky head with a little bit bigger bait on it, using like a Senko or something like that that disturbs the water a little bit more, and putting a trailer on their jig that moves a little bit more water seems to be helping them get bites. Most of the crankbait fish are coming on a rock crawler or a wiggle wart, and again, they're fishing the ends of channel swings, fishing that 7 to about 10 foot deep with a crankbait, with a jig and the shaky head from the old bank line on out. Pretty confident if the weather holds and it warms up and we start getting some warmer water, then James is going to get really hot by this weekend, and you're going to start seeing him catching them on a chatterbait. You're going to start seeing them being caught on a spinnerbait around that flooded cover. I know they're drawing the water out of it, but those fish will hover around and move up into that flooded cover to feed and then pull back out. So key on that old bank line, key on that, all that cover, all the buckbrush and all the other cover that is on that old bank line. You should be able to catch some on up the James this week and even into this weekend if we get some more rain. White River, I spent, I guess, close to 18 hours on the White River this past weekend. I caught a lot of short fish, guys. There's a lot of buck males moved up over the weekend on the White River. The best bite we had was definitely on a jig or a shaky head. Now, we stayed in the dirty water most of the day, or all day on Saturday, staying to very dirty water. We tried hitting some of the runoff stuff, but it just wasn't happening back there. Most of our fish came either on, they came on 45-degree chunk rock and gravel mix banks. Most of the fish were 5 to about 10 foot deep, basically the old bank line out to about 10 foot. Did have some better bites out a little bit deeper, but most of the bites were that 5 to 10 foot range on a pro spider jig, on a squirrel head, on a tube. They probably catch them on a Ned rig as well in these locations. But it was a little disappointing, the lack of keepers. We had a bunch of fish, but most of them were short. We did catch a few on a crankbait up there as well. That was on Sunday when the wind started blowing finally at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I think we got an hour and a half of wind before we went in. I caught a few on a rock crawl and a wiggle wart, basically on the ends of channel swings, the same spots we always catch them where the big rock changes and it flattens out. That was pretty good. Threw, again, spinnerbait, threw a spinnerbait and a chatterbait quite a bit and just did not have much success on it. Had a couple of bites, but never really had anything connect. I can tell you that the bite was better on Sunday when we got out of the dirty water, when we ran up, and we did not lose that much water temperature when we got out of the dirty water. Up the White River, it was 58, 59 all afternoon on Sunday, so definitely got some warmer water up there. Definitely have a jig tied on. Did not throw a swim bait much. I threw it a little bit around some trees, but did not really see a whole lot of fish that were suspended. Most of the fish we saw were pretty tight to the bottom, so we were throwing a jig and a shaky head and a tube mostly up there, and that's what we caught most of our fish on. Guys, we are almost done with March. This morning felt like January with 35 degrees and 15-mile-an-hour winds. But we're getting there, and the fish are moving. I think what I saw over the weekend where the water was warmer and the amount of buck males that had moved up and how shallow they were, and with how the water is starting to flush out, we don't have a lot of dirty water, it really feels like things are going to start moving. We did catch some fish around some of the spawning pockets on Sunday as well, so keep that in mind. These fish seem to be moving into the pockets. I really think they're all going to start moving up here very quickly, especially if the weather holds and we start seeing some 60 to 65 degree water temperatures. I think everything's going to run to the bank at once, and the fishing is going to get really good, hopefully by this weekend, because we've got some good weather coming in this week and next week. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see a marked improvement on the fishing, doing basically whatever you want to do. Probably catch them mostly on a jig or a shaky head, or a Ned rig or that sort of thing. But I can tell you right now, the fish are certainly moving. Even down by the dam, I saw a lot of fish back in the pockets, back in the coves, but they just weren't really chasing. They weren't really feeding. Could have been the day, I don't know, but they're certainly moving up. Again, guys, thanks for being members of Table Rock Fishing Intel. We really appreciate your support. and appreciate you guys joining, signing up, using the website, tell your friends, all that stuff. It's really cool. We really appreciate it. Helps us to do what we like to do and helps us to help you catch more fish on Table Rock Lake. But if you're coming down, want to hire a guide, give me a call. It's Focus Fishing Guide Service. You can reach me at 417-860-4743 or hit my website, focusfishing.com, and you can either shoot me an email or book online. Either way, I get back to you as soon as I can. Guys, thanks for watching the video. Again, thanks for being members of Table Rock Fishing Intel. Can't wait to hear from you. We'll see you.